microphone. Very important. Okay. Testing. Okay, fine. All right. So I can do without this. And we can proceed. So I have to do sound checks because my my computer betrays me pretty regularly. A topic today. 10th in this series called Massive Societal Change. So we're at episode 10, and I'm calling this one Hyperlocal Living. The others have been along similar lines, like how are we going to have to do things differently in the face of global heating? Which is not just global heating. It's going to imply a lot of things like collapse of supply chains, agricultural failure, collapse of governments, and therefore collapse of government support for the things that we feel like we need to be able to do. So in the Massive Societal Change series, I'm addressing some of these things. And today's episode, this is actually something I talk about all the time, but I haven't done an episode in this series. And this was brought about, made me think about this, because of some talks that Rupert Read has been giving. Rupert Read is a English philosopher, a British philosopher. He's not a philosopher of English. He's a British philosopher, and he has been in this space for quite a while. I've enjoyed his talks in the past. I always felt like he sort of got it. He even I don't have much use for philosophers, to be honest. I mean, these are the people who argue about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. So, okay, fine, whatever. Not that interesting, but nevertheless, he was speaking on global heating and climate change as philosophical issues, like what are we going to do? Okay, fine. What can humans do? What are humans good for in this struggle, this fight, and how should we go about it? He just recently, I noticed in some of his talks, and my wife comes up with these things, so full credit to her, is that he has kind of changed his, or things I have to do. He has kind of changed his tune a little bit. And he is, instead of saying that humans must rise to the occasion of, reducing fossil fuel consumption and honoring the commitments in the Paris Climate Accords, and struggling with political realities and economic failures and all these kinds of things, broad picture issues, which is fine. None of it's wrong, but I don't hold out much hope for those things. Recently, he has been saying basically abandon ship, which I do agree with. And it's interesting, actually, that a philosopher like Rupert Read, and you can find him all over the internet. He's a very prolific interviewer, and you just do a Google search and you'll find his stuff. If you want to listen to him, you can do the same thing on YouTube. And so now he's saying essentially what I've been saying for about the last 5 years, which is we have to prepare. We must prepare to abandon ship. Now that works if you're on the Titanic, with the caveat that they didn't have enough lifeboats. So maybe it works, right? We understand what abandoning ship means if you're on the Titanic and it's sinking into the North Atlantic. We kind of understand the mechanics of that. But we don't understand the mechanics of how do you abandon ship if you're embedded in the Earth dynamic system and it's changing out from under you, big rug pull, and you're probably going to find yourself adrift. You're not going to have any of the things that you need or have become accustomed to. And so he's kind of saying that, and specifically what he's saying these days, and he's being quite militant about it, so good for him. He's a fellow savage as far as I'm concerned. What he's saying is that the pathway offered to us, provided to us here, has been what we call largely mitigation. So since the Paris Climate Accords, that was 2015, but even before that, but maybe even going back to Al Gore, there was all this talk about, well, there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere, so we must remove CO2 from the atmosphere, or we must green our economy, solar panels and wind turbines and electric cars and efficient lighting and twisty bulbs, change your light bulbs, and all this kind of stuff. And that was all mitigation. That was like saying, okay, we kind of screwed the pooch, so let's try and fix this. That's mitigation. And what Rupert Reed is saying, what I've been saying on this channel for years really, is that ship has sailed. We're not mitigating anything at this point. We're too far gone. And also, to be frankly honest, the political structures, the economic structures are militant against mitigation. They don't want any change. They want business as usual. They want capitalism, consumerism, profits, buying and selling stock, shipping cheap goods from China, exploiting labor in Mexico and Indonesia. And they're not interested. And since they basically control the world and they run it to suit themselves, and that's just the truth, and we all know that, and we all agree, that's how it is. Why fight it? That battle was lost a long time ago. Then no, we're not going to mitigate anything. Oh, they'll sell you an electric car and they'll sell you LED lights and they'll let you consume your way into a kind of walking sleep, a sleepwalk that you're gonna consume your way through global heating and you're gonna emerge on the other side as whatever happens to you. You'll just sleepwalk your way through this, buying stocks and bonds and buying electric cars, and then whatever happens to you happens, right? Because that's their recommendation: consume differently, but consume. If you want to consume differently, hey, we have things we'll sell you. We'll sell you electric cars. We'll sell you LED bulbs. You can have a vegan lifestyle. You can buy your electricity from solar farms if you want to. We'll sell you things. But, they're not going to stop selling things, and they're not going to stop manufacturing things, and they're not going to stop shipping things all over the planet, and so on and so forth. So he's given up on mitigation, as I gave up on it years ago, because that's not going to work. And he's now saying that we must adapt. And that has been a meme that I've been tracking for a couple of years now, especially since the abject, phenomenal failure of the Paris Climate Accords, which was kind of baked into the cake. Also, to be honest, the last three COPs, Conference of the Parties, and I think the third COP just kicked off in Brazil. The last two were hosted by countries that export fossil fuels. I think it was first Saudi Arabia, and then it was Qatar or UAE. I should know these things, but I don't keep track because I don't give a fuck. Okay, we see where this is headed. We know. It's almost like we've seen this movie before. They're going to take over the process that's supposed to help save us, and they're just going to laugh in our face and run it the way they want to. Whatever. I don't even care. Fine, that's their privilege. They can do that. I don't have to give them any of my attention, and I don't. But anyway, now the most recent COP is in Brazil, and I saw the president of Finland, who basically opened proceedings with a speech. It was a short speech. It was 5 minutes. And he admitted, that, like the first line of his speech, people are now cynical about the COP process. We're up to 30 now. 30. Nothing of substance has come out of this. And he ended his 5-10 minute speech with the same line. We have to help people overcome their cynicism. We must make the 30th COP work. And there's something special about like the COPs that occur every 5 years, and this is one of those where they have to, the countries of the world have to reassess their contributions to solutions towards global heating, and so these are special. Like the 25th must have been special, and also the 30th will be special, and the 35th will be special. But it doesn't matter. Countries aren't doing anything. They don't want to. To all their wealth, all their political power, all their consumerism, everything. Their gains in medicine, right? Their gains in solar and wind and everything else is all driven by fossil fuels, all of it. So they can't even have small wins unless they keep burning fossil fuels. So no one's interested in changing how we do things. It's all business as usual. And that's why people like Rupert Reed and myself are now on board with a completely different philosophy and a completely different approach. And that is, we must abandon ship. That's what you do when the ship is on fire. And if you stay on the ship, you're going to die. You just get off the ship. You abandon ship. And again, with the Titanic, we sort of know what that means, or any other ship really. But with the Earth dynamic system, what does that mean? So I have thought about this a lot. And having worked on this channel and thought about this and worked through my thoughts on this channel, see my previous work, I have written a book. So I'm going to promote my book. The link is in the description. The book is called It Was 100 Days, and it's about a group of people in a community who are trying to figure out how, really but if so, then how will they survive after the collapse, the sudden and complete collapse of civilization. And, I think it's kind of optimistic, and people could even criticize the book as being rather optimistic, like, wow, so there you go. But one of the, and I'll get to the topic here in a minute, one of the implicit demonstrations in the book, and it takes a while for the people in the book to understand what has happened, is that nearly everyone dies. The book is written, and this is key. This is not a Hollywood telling where you get this perspective and that perspective, and someone's up in an airplane and someone's on a military base and all these perspectives. This is told from the perspective of the survivors, not the dead. Remember, the dead tell no tales. And this is a story that is literally a tale, and it is told for the future by the living. These are the people who got off the ship. And they don't even know what's happening around them. They have put up their walls and they have turned inward. Philosophically, spiritually, mechanically, right? The mechanics of survival, planting seeds and raising children and defending yourself, the mechanics of all that has turned inward. They abandon the outside world because it's scary and also it's not helping. There's nothing out there. They send out their scouts and their spies and there's nothing there. So they turn inward and they figure it out. And that is the topic today, is abandoning all this in favor of an inward focus. And I don't know where this term came from. My wife and I both use it a lot, but I don't know if she discovered it or I did or we made it up. Maybe we made it up. I can't remember. Hyperlocal. So we all know what local means, right? That's your neighborhood, your city, maybe your town, right? Your local. Things that are local. What is that? Drivable, walkable, your zip code, your voting district, some idea of locality that you recognize that this is your community. And, it could be a couple of blocks, it could be a zip code, it could be even an entire town if the town is small enough. But that's your locality. Hyperlocal is taking that idea that, okay, this is my dwelling space, and collapsing it down to something that's a fraction of that, like a postage stamp version of locality. So another term I've used to describe it is village life. But I think that village life, well, in some ways it's more accessible as a term. Everyone kind of knows what a village is, right? That's where peasants live, or farmers, or people who are not part of the global economy. It's village life kind of misses a key point here, which is that whereas villages in the past might have been part of a little isolated part of a much bigger, say, economic system, Villages in the future will be the economic system. That'll be it. And maybe there's a village 3, 4, 10 miles that way, and there's another one 10 miles the other direction, but you won't be focusing on them. You may know they exist, and you may even go there once in a while, like once a year or something, but for the most part, your village is it. There's no traders coming through your village. There's no one. The king doesn't come to visit. There's nowhere for you to go. They've got their walls and their gates, and they don't want you coming in. And you've got your walls and gates, and you're not really opening up your gate for anybody. And that's it. And that's where the idea of hyperlocality comes in. We are going to go and maybe, okay, focus. From where we are, where everything is connected, and I don't mean just the internet, there's also supply chains, trucks, trains, cargo planes, cargo ships, right? From where we are, there is a vast web of connectivity to people, services, information, technology. We're on an electrical grid. There's a water supply system. There was a sewer treatment plant. There's roads, and the roads have traffic controls, and there's an entire infrastructure just for building and repairing roads, which you never see because they only really work at night. There you go, big secret, right? And there's a whole nother group of people, an army of people who maintain the electrical grid. Another group of people who maintain the water supply. They're always digging up the roads and fixing the broken pipes, right? And then there's a whole other group of people in the government that manage all the city services. Yeah, whether it's getting a permit for a new building you want to build, or the court system, for justice and solving problems, the banking system, financial system, all this stuff. Is all of this is spread around just like this big web that we are attached to all these things constantly. Whether you think of it daily or not, you're attached to these things constantly. And this is also the system that brings you your food, not to your home, of course, but it brings it to your local market. Well, you have a little liquor store down the street, but they've got some food. They got potato chips and fast foods, frozen foods, and whether you're a big market over on the other side, which has got produce and aisles and aisles of canned goods and all this kind of stuff. All of that is this web that you are embedded in that's completely invisible to you. You take advantage of it. You've got your credit card, your financial access, and you go in there, you get what you want. You swipe your credit card, you walk out, you go home, you cook it on the cooktop, which has electricity from another part of the grid. And you've got the internet to find the recipe to cook the thing. And then you can order something on Amazon Prime, and then you're watching YouTube, you're watching me, you're watching someone else. And you're just embedded in this constantly. And you don't even know it. People don't even know it. But that's not going to work. All of that is going to be destroyed by global heating. And it's already started. Some of us will lose access to the global, what do you want to call it? Super civilization? Some of us will lose access to that sooner. Some of us will lose temporary access and then reconnect. But it's going to be harder and harder to maintain access. As storms come in, as the economy collapses, people lose their jobs, as they no longer have access to financial services, money, credit cards, cars, right? Their cars are being repossessed because people lose their job. Then they just start to implode inward. And whatever they may want to say about what has happened to them, they can't change it. And what eventually happens when enough of this stuff breaks down and falls apart, and it can happen fairly quickly, see my book, then people either figure out a different way of living that's not patched in to this enormous super civilization. They either find another way to live without all that connectivity, or they die. That's just how it is. That's how it works. The Trump administration just recently here in the United States, the Trump administration just cut off funding for supplemental food assistance for Americans. They have different names. There's WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, Support for Women, Infant, and Children, WIC. There's also SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And these are all funded by some combination of state funding for the more wealthy states, federal funding for the states that don't have the money, and it serves a fairly decent part of the American population, because this problem of people being kicked out of the system and no longer having access has been going on for a long time here in America, and it's a real tragedy. It's what got us Donald Trump, for example, if you're trying to figure that part out, because he promised the moon and the stars to people who didn't have anything, who were in fact reliant on SNAP and WIC and food banks and other such, support systems. And he just defunded them all. There were also a lot of people, especially in the South and the Southeast of the U.S., who were dependent on FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, who would swoop in during natural disasters, which they have quite a few, and FEMA would swoop in and help rebuild their communities. And that's gone. They're defunding FEMA and they're throwing that away. So the Trump administration is deliberately kicking the stool out from under a fairly substantial part of America. So these people are now thrown under the bus, essentially. They are going to have to figure out hyperlocal living really fast, or they're just going to die. That's it. I mean, maybe they can move, but it takes money to move. You can't move to California and set up your living situation in California if you're coming from, say, West Texas or some poor part of Kentucky or Western North Carolina or something like that. You're not just going to drop yourself in California and start over, because it's too expensive to live here. We've got a lot of money. There's a lot of services. If Trump wants to pull funding for supplemental nutrition programs, the state will fund it. They got money for that. And so they'll just fund it themselves, at least as best they can. A lot of wealthy people here make donations to food banks. A lot of wealthy store chains like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods will make donations to food banks as a tax write-off, of course. But hey, we'll support them, whatever they need. Tax write-off is fine. So when you have places like California and New York State, then your problems don't become quite as acute. But for all these other people, because of the federal shutdown and the Trump administration's general propensity to just throw poor people under the bus, including his MAGA supporters, who are mostly poor people, who voted for him because they felt like someone else had already thrown them under the bus. Now he's throwing them under the bus again. So that doesn't work. Sorry, people. They're going to have to come up with another way to live. They're going to have to basically they're going to have to adapt, which is what Rupert Reed's program is. Don't expect anyone to save you. You must save yourself. You must adapt. And the Trump administration shutting down the government and canceling the food support is sort of just a preview of coming attractions. This is going to become a permanent global reality because of global heating. If he wants to do it now for ideological reasons, it doesn't matter, because it's coming for all of us, because the Earth system is spinning itself to pieces. Trump can shut down availability of food giveaways and food banks, and he can do that for political reasons. But in the end, it doesn't matter, because global heating is going to do the same thing. Global heating is going to create enormous challenges for the food supply, enormous challenges for water supply. And these are not local problems like you had a water breakout in the street and now your water is cut off because of that. These will be regional or even continental-sized problems. The melting of the glaciers in the Himalayas, that's a water supply for most of South Asia. And when those glaciers are melted, that water basically goes away. They'll have monsoon rains, and then that's it. They'll get monsoon rain, and then their creeks and rivers will dry up, and then they'll get a rain, and it'll all dry up, and that becomes unstable. It was the regular supply of water coming down from the Himalayas because of seasonal melt that kept them with water. They have monsoon rains, but they're sketchy and they're periodic and they're patchy, and it's not a reliable water supply. So there's a lot of things that global heating is going to do, and it's already doing. These processes have already started. This is not a maybe someday, 100 years from now thing. This is a current thing, and they know, at least at the government level, they know that they're in trouble. Sea level rise, again, with all this glacial melting and the melting of the Antarctic ice sheets and the Greenland ice cap. With all this, sea level rise is going to rise. Sea level is going to rise. And if you happen to be a coastal community, in which, a lot of our named cities are coastal communities, or largely so, then you're going to have to manage your retreat. That's another term we can use here: managed retreat. Adaptation and managed retreat are kind of different uses of the same idea. You're going to have to leave coastal areas. You're going to have to abandon port facilities. You're going to have to abandon power plants that are located on the coast for the cold water to cool the power plant. You're going to have to abandon treatment facilities, water treatment and sewer treatment. You're going to have to abandon croplands if they're below sea level, as is the case in, say, the Netherlands. So global heating is going to bring us these problems. If the Trump administration, for ideological reasons, wants to shut down the supplemental food assistance programs, that's his business. But eventually it won't be anybody's business. It'll just happen. So people like me and Rupert Reed and a growing cadre of others are saying, look, mitigation, reducing carbon emissions, green economy, green jobs, carbon capture, all these coulda, woulda, shoulda, might have been nice things that we've been talking about really since Al Gore came out with his Inconvenient Truth. Ever since then, all these nice things we coulda, woulda, shoulda done, we didn't, and now we're out of time. So forget mitigation. It's not going to happen. It costs too much money, and for whatever reasons, ideologically, civilizationally, because of capitalism, whatever, we didn't want to spend the money, so we didn't, and now it doesn't matter anymore. So we're going to have to abandon these large-scale projects and revert to village life, and this is a very specific clarification, hyper-local living. You will not have your connections to a much wider world that has existed in increasing complexity for 100 years. We've been doing this project of globalizing everything for 100 years. And in the last 20 years or so, we have been extremely successful at that, so that there's hardly any nation left on Earth that doesn't have really significant ties to other nations. Now, that was supposed to be a good idea, but now we see it can be weaponized in the case of, say, tariff wars, and it can be completely undone by changes in the Earth dynamic system. Nations that used to supply you with food won't be able to. Regions in your own country that used to supply other regions with food won't be able to. Water sources that maybe even cross multiple national boundaries, as happens with the great rivers in South Asia. Countries are damming up those rivers, and the water isn't being allowed to flow to other countries. And that's a thing. That's just a thing. That's what's going to happen now and into the future. So you have to start thinking about hyper-local living. Yes, that will look like village life, that we can talk about it in terms of that, because a new word like hyper-local doesn't even have a proper definition for most people. But your village will be hyper-local. You will have to come up with ways of living that you have never comprehended. No one has comprehended ways of living like we are going to have to both anticipate and engineer. We will have to create these systems of organized living, of reorganizing ourselves into completely different forms of life. Can we? No, we can't do that. People won't do that. They won't do it. They won't. They can't. The governments will oppose them. They won't have the money. They won't have this support. Capitalism will turn on them and brand them as criminals and terrorists, and they won't let them do it. The zoning ordinances will be invoked, and you won't be able to do it. Engineers will come along and say, you can't build a house like that, and you won't be allowed to do it. You need to completely re-engineer your life around living hyper-local. Your own water supply, your own food supply, your own services. And it takes hundreds of people to do this. And the way that we are fractured by our ideologies and our political leadership, the way we're kept fractured and not allowed to work together, means you can't do it. And so as a consequence, this is what you have to do, but you can't do it, or you won't be allowed, and or you're ideologically opposed to it, and or it's unfamiliar, and or you're offended by it. It's communism, or it's whatever you think it is, Marxism, and or you don't have the tools, and or you don't have the land, and or you don't have anything going for you, then you're going to die. People will die. Now I throw this picture up here because this actually doesn't show it, but I think that this is sufficiently jarring enough for most viewers of my video to both cause extreme offense and a certain amount of wonder and a certain light bulb may go off for some people. My actual expectation is that this is how you'll have to live, except that there's something missing in this picture. There's no fields. There's no workers. There's no farm workers, which will be the people in this village. The people in this village will be the farm workers. They will be the engineers, the irrigation engineers, and the planting engineers, and the mechanics for all the tractors or the harnesses or whatever, and the plows, whatever else they have to have. Everybody in this village will be doing all those things. So what's missing in this village is there's no blacksmith. There's no barrel maker. There's no lumber yard. Where are the lumberjacks? Where are the carpenters? Are they here? Or are they not here? This is just a pretty picture. This is a real picture, by the way. I think this was an experiment. The other key thing here is that these homes are all underground, and you're going to have to be underground because you're not going to be able to survive the fires, the windstorms, the rain, the torrential rains, and the heat, global heating, right? You won't be able to survive any of the impacts from the environment if you're above ground. You'll have to be underground. Like this, which is almost completely underground, or partially underground. You may have your home may have an above ground portion that's more traditional, but that's not where you live. That's just where you hang out. Maybe your dining room is up there, maybe even the kitchen, but you live underground. You sleep underground. You maybe even have your food supply that you've laid up underground, and other things that you can't afford to lose will be underground. And then there's an above ground portion that's sort of sacrificial. If it gets washed away or lost in a fire, or if it's just too hot in it during the day to be in it, then it doesn't matter. You don't have to have it. It's just a nice to have. And then you really live below ground. So you could have a hybrid. This is not showing that, but I think everyone is going to have to live underground. That's weird. That's new. But I don't see where you have a choice. We're talking in this series about massive societal change, and I'm not shitting you, okay? Global heating is going to make it impossible for most people to live as they are living now. And one result of the impossibility of this going forward is that people die in large numbers. Now, this group of people, if you want to imagine this is an actual community, this group of people, what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 domiciles here. This is a small village. They've got their footpaths. They've got their, you see in the lower corner there's some sheep grazing. You could have cattle, horses probably, and a few, one or two, maybe one road coming and going from this place. And the rest of it's footpaths and stairs to and from. They could be growing, it's not happening here in this picture, but they could be growing gardens all over this entire picture. This entire picture could be one huge bunch of gardens, some of them private, some of them collective. They could have orchards, and of course, if there's pasture, they can have animals that they want to have for whatever purpose. Deer, dairy cattle, sheep for wool, and horses for transportation, and other animals. Right? You can have pigs, chickens, whatever you want, whatever you think you have to have. Bees, right? For honey and pollination, and you can have all those things you want. And then your animals would also have to have some place to retreat to in the heat of the day. They may end up being released at night so they can graze at night, and then otherwise they're kept in their underground facilities. You want to protect your animals, and this is adaptation. This is the level of adaptation that Rupert Reed and I are talking about. It's not different consumerism. It's not buying an electric car. That's mitigation. That's just cope. You're just coping. Okay. This is something completely different. This is reorganizing yourself completely. Now, this village is not self-sufficient. They're not. But this is what it would look like. And I put this image up to be jarring, as an affront, as an attack on your sensibilities, that you couldn't live like this, that this is living like an animal, and that you're out in the countryside, and where's my 7-Eleven, and where's my Starbucks? Okay? We're talking about managed retreat, and most people won't do it. Most people will not do it, and those people who do not do it and can't figure it out and don't have the money and don't have the tools and don't have the support and can't form a community, and they don't have an army, right, to wield all the shovels, an army of workers to wield all the shovels and the plows and the dig the wells and lay out the homes and build the homes and bury them in the dirt. If communities don't have 200, 300 people willing to work together and figure this out and work long hours and suffer depredations, right? They don't have all the nice things anymore in the communities. People that can't figure this out, they die. If you can't figure this out, you die. That's it. Because global heating is going to kill you. It's going to kill you. And it's going to end your access to an easy food supply. It's going to end your access to easy water. It's going to cut you off from all the current things that keep you alive. Electricity, medical system, medications, first responders, hospitals, government agencies, all the things that keep you alive right now. And of course, all the stores and everything you can buy, everything you could just bring home. Well, swipe your credit card, bring it home, food, clothing, everything else, electronics, medications, medical care, going to a hospital, swiping your credit card, coming home. All that is going to vanish. You're not going to have it. You're going to have nothing. And if you can combine your labor and your intelligence and your creativity and your skill set with 200 other people, then you could have a village life that reflects hyperlocal survival, where you have your own well and you have your own food supply. You have gardens, you have pasture, you have your own animals. And yes, you could. It's a village, but the key takeaway to this village, like the one on the screen, but also any village, however configured, the key takeaway is it has to be hyperlocal. If people decided to live collectively in villages, that wouldn't be massive societal change. That's a lifestyle change. The part of this picture that is massive societal change is this picture is not connected to anything else in the environment. It is the environment. It is the totality of it. And whatever these people can have in their immediate environment, whatever they can create for themselves, whatever they can maintain for themselves, whatever technology, whatever resources, whatever skills that they can bring into this environment, as shown on this screen, that environment, that 1 acre, and maybe the surrounding acres, okay, whatever they can bring, that's what they have. They don't have connections to anything else. All of that has collapsed. It is currently in the process of collapsing. People are running scared of what's going to happen to their food chains. What's going to happen when there's economic collapse? People are losing their jobs. The economy is already collapsing. The economy doesn't need these people anymore. And what happens when you lose your job and you don't have money, you don't have access to the financial system? Then you die. And I see it all the time. Where I live, we have homeless encampments all around here. This is fairly common in California because California has a lot of money. And if you're going to be homeless and destitute, you might as well do it in a place that has a lot of money. And, you know, the cities, the counties, the states, they buy hotels and turn it into homeless housing. You can't do that in Kentucky or Tennessee. They don't have money for that. You can't do that in Kansas. There's no money for it. They're poor. These are poor states. Most of the states that voted for Donald Trump were broke. Those people are broke. And they're terrified. And they brought him in because he's a populist and he's promising them, you know, relief from the constant grinding horror of their lives. He also promised them, you know, retribution and revenge, and, you know, they want to blame somebody for all this. This all happened in Germany in 1933. Populists and demagogues will always promise, you know, we're going to punish someone for dragging you down and throwing you under the bus, and then they promptly, you know, abandon their supporters, throw them under the bus too, and that's it. They just want the power. And Donald Trump, he wants the power. He has the power. And now he's cutting off food assistance to the same people. And, you know, right here in California, we have homeless people who have come here from all over the country because they can do that. And they're living in California and they're being fed and clothed and sheltered, really. Many of them are. And the women and the children in particular. And everything is being provided for them. You can say, oh, well, that's socialism. Okay, but we're trying to keep people from dying. It's not going to work. You know, California is a node in this enormously distributed web of systems and services in this global civilization. For California, were it a country, which it practically is at this point, it would be the fourth largest economy in the world. So of course you're going to, if you live in the United States and you can travel freely within the 50 states, you're going to come to California and you're going to drive out here with your last $1,000 and you're going to buy your last gallon of gas just as you cross the border into California. And then you're going to abandon your car and you're going to become homeless. And you're going to thank your lucky stars that California exists and that they're going to take care of people. And I've seen it. I've seen it all up and down the roads around my community here. All up and down. And people are well behaved, and they're not a problem. They're not a problem at all. They can be. They can become a problem because when people are broken, they become a problem. But the picture you see in front of you right now, these are not broken people, are they? They're able to pull something together. Now, this is not the concept I'm talking about. This picture is meant to be an affront. It's meant to be jarring. It's meant to be a challenge to you. It's a visual representation of where we have to go. What's missing, again, it needs to be repeated. What's missing from this picture is the blacksmith, the granary for storing food, the fields where the wheat and the barley and whatever else, the oats are growing. Excuse me. That's missing here. What's missing is the health clinic. What's missing is the one-room school. Now, some of these buildings could be one-room schools. Some of these buildings could be a clinic, even a library, right? We don't know. But it would be a complex assemblage of people with different skills trying to provide everything the village needs on a hyperlocal basis without any connections to the outside world, because those connections have been severed by global heating. Right now, they're being severed by political ideology, and that's a preview of coming attractions. What the real problem is going to be that these connections to the greater world of food and water and information and defense and medicine and medical care and treatments, all those connections to all of these external systems are going to be severed by global heating. The world is going to become disconnected from itself. Capitalism, the parasitic system that we all know and love and use to survive, is going to be destroyed. It can't continue, and it's already falling apart. What do you think these tariff wars are about? Every country is going to implode inward and cut itself off from every other country, and even the countries of Europe are going to close their borders to each other, and they're going to be fighting over the last this and that, and then they all implode. Then they implode, and they leave the global stage. for the last time ever. And in the process of losing access to all of these critical services and becoming more and more cut off, you become more and more local. And if you can figure that out, if you can make that work, it's going to look like a village, and it will have the quality of being hyperlocal. As we are increasingly cut off and increasingly isolated, we will become of necessity hyperlocal. And I will promise you right now that 999 out of 1,000 people won't be able to figure that out. They either won't have the money, they won't have the ideology, they won't have the adaptability, they won't have the resources, they won't have the trust. They'll all revert to violence. They'll become cannibal zombies, like in my book, and they just won't figure it out. They won't figure it out. They will still be cut off from all of this, all the web, the huge web of all these things that you could get with a swipe of your credit card. They'll all be cut off from that, but they won't create, through adaptation and cooperation, an alternative. That alternative looks something like this, because we will have to physically escape the surface of the earth. As the earth becomes uninhabitable, it will look something like this, but it will look like more than this. Where are the gardens? Where are the orchards? Where are the fields? Where are the animals, the domesticated animals? Where are the pens? Where are the pastures? It's not here in this picture. This picture is sufficiently jarring to get you out of your comfortable space. But this picture is incomplete by a long shot. Oh, and also, where are the people? There should be hundreds of people working in this picture. Working in the gardens, working with the children, helping the elders, digging the well, creating the terraces for the crops, herding the animals, right? Making the barrels, doing the woodwork, making the chairs, making the tables. Where are those people? There are hundreds of people living in this picture. There are here in this exact picture. This picture is just a skeleton, a representation of an alternative reality, except this isn't real. I think it really was created. I think this is an actual picture. I got this from Smithsonian Magazine or something. I could actually check that. I think I still have that tab open. Where is it? No, maybe I don't. Wait, what's this? No, I don't have it. I went and I got an image, and then I lost the tab. So I can't tell you what this has something to do with Smithsonian. This was so someone. Where was this built? Was this built? Is this a movie set? This could be a movie set, right? Who knows what this is? But was this built as a project, as a proof of concept? Was it built as a movie set? I don't know. I can't tell you. But it's not complete because there's no people, there's no gardens, there's no orchards, there's no pastures, there's no fields, fertile fields with crops to be harvested, in the fall. But this is what you should have in mind. You should have this image in mind, but add all those missing things. You see where I'm headed with this? This is the image, but add all those missing things. And creating this village is the work of hundreds of people. Hundreds of people just to create this. Planting the gardens is the work of hundreds of people. Bringing in the animals, creating the pastures, and managing the animals is the works of, I shouldn't say hundreds, scores of people, right? There will be 300 people living in this village. This village will cover 5 acres, and all through this village will be the gardens and the orchards and the vineyards and the animal pens and underground facilities for the animals in the winter or in the heat. Hundreds of people working for years potentially, and 999 people out of 1,000 won't pull that off. But this is the goal. This is where you need to be. If you intend to go forward on this planet with the changes that are coming and the complete, utter lack of political will and no signs of any mitigation of any kind, you're going to have to manage individually and as groups, eventually forming villages. You're going to have to manage your retreat from the way things are and your adaptation into hyperlocal village life. And whatever you can salvage, that's what you get to have. Whatever you can bring forward of modern technology and the modern scene, that's what you get to have, and nothing more. And if you can't bring email forward, then you can't have email. If you can't bring cell towers forward and all that infrastructure, including all those networks and data centers, then you can't have cell phones. If you can't bring forward vineyards because you didn't think to, salvage grapes from the vineyards far, far away from you, well, then you can't have vineyards. You can't have wine, and you can't have grapes. Do you know anyone that has a beehive? Can you manage bees? Do you have anyone with those skills? What you can bring together with the hundreds of people, which you also do not have, whatever you can bring together with those people not available currently, is going to be what you have. And I may be a little bit optimistic when I say that 999 people out of 1,000 won't figure it out. Stated differently, I may be optimistic to say that one person in 1,000 will be able to figure this out. It may be one person in 10,000. It may be one person in 100,000. We may be facing, as this earth continues to heat, and as the global system, the web in which we exist, flashes itself into ashes, as all that happens, we may not figure it out. This is the work. You're looking at it. We may not be able to do this. You can't do it. I can do it. I've been doing it. You can't do this. You need 200 other people to help you do this. And are you willing to do this? Do you have the vision for it? Do they have the vision for it? If they have the vision and they have the shovels, are you willing to participate? Are you going to let your time be used like this? And when it happens, are you going to move in? Are you going to do without? Are you going to, eat your meals on a wooden stool at a tiny table and spend the rest of your time outdoors working in the garden and trying to grow food and trying to work with the animals and managing the orchards and managing the vineyards? Are you going to do that? Are you willing to do that? I don't know. Who are you? Where's your head at? How much do you care? How much is any of this going to matter to you? That's your inner work. And people like myself and Rupert Reed and a few others, we're doing that inner work. We are looking at the future, and it is grim. It is grim, my friend. You had better understand something out of this video. If you don't get this part, then you wasted your time. The future is grim. And I don't mean 100 years in the future. I don't mean your great-grandchildren or whatever your situation is future. I mean like 5 years from now, this has to be the goal. 5 years from now, maybe less, maybe 3. We need to be having this exact discussion right before you on the screen right now. This exact discussion. That is the work. We need to have this discussion right now. I'm helping you think about it. Rupert Reed is helping you think about it. We are having these discussions. We are having these thoughts. And this has to get real. We need to be real about this. What you see in front of you right now, this is the future. This is village life, underground, no joke, and it's hyperlocal. And this picture is but a skeleton. A skeleton. Where are the 300 people? Where are the orchards? Where are the vineyards? Where's the blacksmith? Where's the cooper? Where's the carpenter? Where's the local windmill? Where's the solar panels generating power? This is it. And you don't have much time to figure this out. You don't have much time to bring your people together and figure this out. You don't have much time to tell the governments to get out of the way so you can do this, because they won't let you. But, with enough global heating, enough societal collapse, the governments will fold up. There won't be anybody to stop you. And then you have to find a hillside. You have to find a meadow. You have to find a valley. And you have to bring your animals. You have to bring your materials and bring your people. And you have to get to work. And how many people out of 1,000 can do that? 1? Or is it more like 1 in a million? This is the work of the moment, not the future, not a movie set, not some fictional account. In my book, it was 100 days. They did that. They did this, or some part of this, some skeletal part of what needs to be done, hyperlocal village life. They did that in 100 days. They worked, they suffered, they were afraid, they were attacked from all sides, including by zombie cannibals. And they, after 100 days, they had done something. And then, on reflection, they realized they had to do that 100 times more, which, if you do the math, is 27 years. This adaptation is generational change, including a generation to get rid of people who just can't figure it out. They have to perish. That's their role, is to die. That's their role. And the book, link in the description, is told from the perspective of the people who survive. Because they're the only ones with a story, people. No one else has a story. No one else is going to talk about any of this. No one else is going to have their story of how they ran out of time, ran out of resources, ate their own children, and then died. No one's going to tell that story. What are you talking about? This isn't going to be Hollywood. This isn't going to be some disaster movie. The only people who are going to have anything to say about the future or tell any stories about how they survived when their little grandchildren are collected around their feet. Tell us a story, Grandma. Tell us the story, Grandpa. Tell us how you did it in 100 days. The only people who are going to be in that position are the people who did this. It's before you, right here in front of your eyes. And how many people out of 1 million will do that? One? One people out of 1 million? 200? If you can find 200 people out of 1 million people, then right here where I am in the South Bay, you could have 2 or 3 of these villages. If you can get 200 people out of 1 million, yeah, you could have 2 or 3 villages like this, bigger than this, plus orchards, plus vineyards, plus herds of animals on pastures, plus the blacksmith and the carpenter and the food storage. Yeah, if we pulled this off in the South Bay, where there's like 2 million people living, we could have maybe 3 of these. About that. 3 hyperlocal villages. 3 of these. And that's all you get. And the rest of them, what happens to them? They probably die. Because I don't know how they're going to live. This is the work. This is called adaptation. This is called getting out from under it. This is called changing your situation. The title of this series is called Massive Societal Change. What the fuck do you think I'm talking about? This is what I'm talking about. Can you do this? No. Do you know anyone who can do this? No. Will you do this? No. Will I do this? Probably not. But I know it's the work. And now you do too. So maybe you will. Right? Right? Now you're thinking about it? The people in the book had 100 days to figure it out. Fortunately, they were able to pull themselves together. They were able to see that they had to do this now, and they brought their resources and their skills and their intelligence and their commitment, and in 100 days, read the book, they pulled off something. They did something. And they didn't die. And the people who died had no story to tell. They have no place in this story. They're not in the book. They are completely not in the book. And the people in the book who are surviving, they're like, well, where is everybody? They don't know where they are either. What happened to them? It's a mystery. It has to be a mystery. Because the dead tell no tales. Where'd everybody go? Are we it? Is this it? Are we it everywhere? Is this it for all of humanity? Are we it? Are we the 200, the happy few who actually figured it out and everyone else on the world is dead? Okay, probably not. But you can't rule it out because you don't know. And the story isn't told from the perspective of the people who didn't figure it out. How could it be? There's no part of the tale of the Titanic and the sinking of the Titanic that includes perspectives of people who didn't survive. What was it like to drown in the freezing Atlantic, stuck in the lower decks of the Titanic? We don't know. We can guess. We can be morbid about it. We can even write stories and plays. And this is how I died on the Titanic. But we don't know. The world will belong to the people who could figure this out. It will not belong to the people who could not. And the world will become a much quieter place. So that's what I have. Like and subscribe. Come back here for others on the same thing. Again, this is a series. This is 10th in the series. You might want to go back and have a look at some of those. Massive societal change. What was that? Massive societal change. I think, yeah, wake up. Wake up, people. And go catch yourself some Rupert Reed. Yeah, he's become a savage. Good for him. I think he and I could sit down and have a real conversation. Never happened, of course, but yeah. You watch my videos and you go watch something from Rupert Reed these days, and he's losing his mind, okay? And a lot of people are, and you should be too. So my book covers some of this, link in the description, and we'll catch you next time. And in the meantime, and until that day, don't die.